Oh, sorry. All right, here we go. Let me move these in the order that they should be. Put that up there, that up there. And we have Irish Demon. There we go.
Bonjour.
And Eftupworld is there. Here we go.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. Again.
All right. Yes. Just forget that first stream happened. It was a figment of your imagination. This is the first stream here. There we go.
Yes, indeed.
All right. So what we have here, we have Titan versus Titan. I don't know which one the Kraken is or which one Medusa is, but I guess it doesn't really matter. We've got Eftupworld, who's representing the side of the Flat Earth, and Irish Demon, who's going to take the counterpart. Is going to debate the veracity of the globe Earth. Now, which one of you would like to start?
I'm happy to go second. I had a bit of low bloods there a minute ago, so I've just had a drink to bring myself back up. So I wouldn't mind going second if that's all right.
That's fine. All right, so Eftupworld, take
Sounds
about
great.
5 minutes to kind of introduce yourself and give us your stuffs, and we will go on mute while you do.
Okay, my name is. Thank you, by the way. And sorry about earlier there. Little bit late on my part. My name's Joe, and my channel's Eftupworld, and I think that anything that I bring up in this debate will probably be something that everyone already knows. So it's not like I'm going to be bringing a ton of new information or something, but I will be emphasizing certain observations we make, and I'm looking forward to talking about how everyone in the world, this is an important thing to me, everyone in the world lives on the earth, and what I mean is the ground under our feet. It doesn't appear to be moving or rotating in our observation, our first-hand observation. Now, there's equipment and there's other ways, obviously, that we would be able to determine, like, if the earth was rotating. But in order to say that the earth's rotating, we do have to go against an observation that we do make, which is that the ground beneath your house and your car when you're driving, and that ground has never moved unless there's been like an earthquake or a landslide, because we live on the earth. So it's a simple thing that I'm pointing out there. And as far as curvature of the earth being a sphere, I don't think that water takes that shape on its own, and I think we can actually look at we can make observations over the surface of water, especially because that would, on a globe with gravity, the water would have to basically uniformly curve at whatever curvature. And I think that just with making short distance observations of like 10 miles and 20 miles, that we can notice that there's not a horizon where there probably should be if it was a globe. And there's a lot of other observations like that, which I'm sure we'll get into. I haven't had any time to line anything up, prepare anything to will it as we're going here. And also, I want to say thank you to Irish Demon for coming to debate. And yeah, subscribe to my channel if you're, and it's free. And thank you to the channel here for allowing us to debate. And I think that's about all I need to say for now.
Alrighty. Irish Demon.
Bonjour, as the French would say. I'm the Irish Demon. Of course, most of you would know me from my channel where I debunk some stuff. I am not a scientist. I'm not great with math or any of that kind of stuff, but I like to use common sense to try to debunk stuff. I don't claim to be right on everything, but certainly I do try my very best. Where it comes to the flat Earth situation, whatever you want to call it, of course, there is no set model and nobody subscribes to a set model. And it doesn't seem that anybody's been able to create a model that works. And so it is very difficult to scrutinize something that has the goalposts moving around so much. The globe model is set in stone, essentially. It is very complex. Nobody would argue that. There are multiple different things that need to be taken into consideration, such as atmospheric conditions, loads of different things. So I understand it is a very complex model to break down and to attempt to debunk, but at least there is material there to do so. But the way I want to look into this whole thing is more along a common sense line with respect to the sheer scale of a conspiracy like this. So the analogy that I always like to look at is to have a look at what happened in the, I won't say it because I don't want the channel to get demonetized, but look at what happened with President Clinton in the Oval Office with a certain lady. That was two people and they couldn't keep that a secret. So how could they keep something as big as the flat Earth a secret? I'm going to address some of the people that would need to be involved in a conspiracy of that scale and why some of those things don't work. And then from the science perspective, I'll try to break down certain things to try to explain those or to put them into maybe simpler terms, like what they would be put into for me so that I could understand them. Because a lot of these concepts are foreign to me. I don't have a background in this kind of thing. So, it's still a learning curve for me with a lot of the science. But I think that given the overwhelming amount of evidence that we have to assert with absolute certainty that the Earth is in fact an oblate spheroid, or we'll just say a globe for argument's sake, that the amount of evidence that would need to be provided to the contrary would be just overwhelming. A very shaky, unknown picture of an oil platform, for example, does not debunk the globe Earth. It shows that there are some specific things that need to be looked at in that picture to explain them. For sure, we have a lot of unexplained phenomena, but it doesn't prove the globe Earth wrong. So I think I'll be taking just a common sense approach, a layman's approach to why the flat Earth theory, the different flat Earth models, the concept that we're being lied to about the shape of the Earth is ultimately just a conspiracy and blown way out of proportion. And this is a thing that kind of started as a meme, really, that just got out of control. So yeah, that's the angle I'll be taking. Thank you, Johnny O, for hosting this. Thank you so much, Eftupworld, for joining me. And yeah, look forward to sharing some ideas and having a conversation. I yield my time.
All right, let's get Eftupworld back in here. So there we go. As long as we keep this nice and civil, we'll have an awesome debate.
Oh yeah,
let's try
absolutely.
not to overtalk each other. We'll make a point, and then we'll let Eftupworld. You can present your. We'll go point by point. So pick your best, and we'll go from there. Meanwhile, before we get started, I want to read out the super chat here. It says from Hasloy for 50 knock. I'm not sure what that is because I don't live in wherever that is. Just here to say, incoming Pratt. Before I head to work, will listen in while at work. Can't type. Also, sup nerds, and give me a measurement of flat. I'm sure we're going to get into that. All right.
Good.
So,
yeah.
Eftupworld, if you would like to present us with your strongest point, we'll start there.
All right. Well, I have to be really careful now because Irish Demon, you don't want to get on his bad side. And so I don't want to make him rage quit. So I'm gonna do.
Oh,
my
don't
best.
worry.
I'm just kidding. I like to have fun during the debate too. So, one point, and we talked about this a little bit, I guess, or maybe Fohammer and I, about Earth's rotation. Is that something you'd like to kind of talk about?
Yeah, sure. I can do my best anyway. Yeah, I'll give it a shot.
Okay. The one thing that just lately, for I don't know why, but one thing that's been really interesting to me is that we all do make an observation every day, all day long, and it happens to be the opposite of what a lot of us believe about the Earth. I mean, the ground that we live on. I was actually talking to my dad yesterday, and we were outside and we were moving a little bit of dirt with the rake and stuff, and I was like, but Dad, look at the ground. it's not moving, and he was like, no, but we know that the Earth is moving. And I'm saying, but we observe that it's not. We know that it is, but we observe that it's not. That's just been a very interesting concept to me, that we actually do that in this world. Go ahead and comment whatever you think.
Sure. So I guess I would answer that with a question, right? And it's a very basic question, and I don't expect for you to give, an exact answer to this. But what would you expect to see if you accepted that the Earth was moving? What would you expect to see when you look down at the ground?
The same thing, exactly the same thing.
So
because we would have to be accelerating or slowing down in order to
see the difference, right?
Yeah.
So
to know.
So can you accept then that, just based on what you said, that the concept of the ground itself not appearing to move works perfectly fine on both models? I think we could both agree.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree with that.
Cool. So it's more about what we see in the sky, really, isn't it? Like looking out the window of a moving car. If the car windows are blacked out and you're moving at a set speed, you can't tell the difference of whether you're moving or not if it's at without, bumps on the road or whatever, obviously. So how would you how do you come to the determination then that the Earth isn't moving based on that observation when both models were worked the same way?
Well, for the globe, obviously, it's just like an example would be like with the atmosphere. A plane flies through the air, and it doesn't necessarily take in the idea that it's rotating in order for the plane to fly and do its functions that it normally does, to go from point A to point B. That atmosphere, if the Earth is moving, it's moving right along with the Earth, right?
Correct.
And that's another point that matches with it would be the same on a globe or of a spinning or a stationary Earth. It would be the same effect living on the Earth. You know what I mean?
So I guess the issue there is that when you talk about an aircraft taking off, and I broke down this point recently. I can't remember who it was that made the point, but I broke it down recently. So when an aircraft takes off, or when an aircraft, just if you were to assume that the Earth is a rotating ball, right? When that aircraft is stationary on the Earth without, engines are switched off and all the rest of it, and it's turning around with the Earth, it's moving at the same speed as the Earth, right? And when it takes off,
moving at that.
Exactly. So when it takes off, it carries that momentum with it. The same way as when you jump off the back of a moving car, you carry that momentum forward with you. So in order to cancel that out, you'd have to run backwards off the car or whatever. So we're carrying that velocity with us. We're carrying that the momentum with us. So it doesn't really matter what way the plane takes off, because in that reference frame, it's still traveling at that same speed with the Earth, be it to the east or to the west, whichever way the plane is going. So it wouldn't get any benefit going one way or over the other, because it has already maintained that momentum with the Earth. I know that's tricky. Like, it took me a while to figure that out, but once it clicks, it makes sense. But it's kind of one of those.
Well, you can't lose that moment. Yeah, you can't lose that momentum just by saying that you want to lose it. It's you're already moving that speed, and that you're going to continue moving that speed.
Exactly.
No matter what your other, you know what I mean. So I think we're obviously in agreement there. The point that I would make is that we all live our whole lives and never see this rotation. We actually see the like you were mentioning, that a lot of it has to do possibly with the sky.
Sure.
And what we see the sky doing, because which again, it goes along with the globe. It would be the same. We would see the stars. Let's see.
You're breaking up there a bit. You're breaking up there a bit. I want to repeat that last one there. Effed up.
I also think that
No, we've lost you there. I
think we've lost you there. After
Maybe tapping my computer out a little bit. Yeah, it
there we go.
seems like my internet's okay, but okay, sorry about that.
Probably a
Maybe I need to
bandwidth issue,
put my
maybe.
tinfoil hat a little to the left. Yeah, it could be. So I have those stars up there on the screen, and we see that. And again, that would look like that if we were living on an Earth that was spinning. We would see something like that in the sky.
Exactly.
But one argument that I make is, and I can give an example that might be able to help clear what I mean, is I think that those stars are actually turning and actually moving, that the whole sky is. And my example of that would be if I was to ask you, Irish Demon, you've seen the ISS fly over your house, right?
Sure. Yeah, it actually, I'm right under the path, so it's a good spot for it. Yeah.
Yeah, it actually, everyone's right under the path at some point. Like
Sure.
20 days out of 30, you'll have a good sighting of the ISS if you look at the right time. Now, is the ISS moving? Does it have a speed that it's moving?
Absolutely.
It does, right?
Yeah, about 17,500 miles per hour, something like that.
Yep. So that would be kind of my example. There's something in the sky moving across the sky, and the way I look at it is that the ISS is, the shuttle that built it, the parts that we brought up, the shuttle was at 0 miles an hour when it was on the ground, and it had to accelerate to that orbital velocity in order to build the ISS up there.
Correct.
So that acceleration means something, is what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what we're looking at then is when you're talking about orbital velocity and orbital mechanics and things like that, that's one thing that we can show would definitely not work on a flat Earth is orbits, because because otherwise you have this. So I'm looking at your beautiful video, the time lapse of the stars going around, and they move in that fashion around like that. That's not how we see the ISS move, though, is it? We see it go like straight across the sky.
Yeah, example. You can there, because of that place up there. There's no drag. There's no air. Or basically, generally no air. And
pretty much none. Yeah.
So you throw a baseball in whatever direction, and it's just going to continue on in concept. It's just continue that same path unless it's affected by something.
As long as you have it at a certain velocity, yeah. Because it's still being affected by Earth's gravity. So the reason the ISS has to go so fast is because it has to cancel out the pull of Earth's gravity to get over that kind of curve of the Earth pulling it, so that it's constantly in free fall.
Yeah.
But I don't understand what would keep this thing moving around in a circular fashion above a flat Earth, or where does it go? If
its initial, it would be its initial acceleration. Maybe that's not the right word. The initial acceleration, and then there's nothing really to slow it down. And I'm being general because they do have to boost the ISS and stuff because it does drag a little and lose a little bit of height.
Every now and again, yeah.
But in general.
So what's keeping it up there, though? What's it falling over? If it's a flat plane, what is causing that free fall?
Yeah,
because otherwise it would just come straight down, right? It wouldn't go around.
Yeah, let me see if I just want to kind of reiterate what you were saying, just so we're on the same page. You have to have a sideways velocity over the surface of the Earth, because as you're falling from gravity, if you're going fast enough sideways, that curvature of the Earth, you can match that with the sideways velocity. You can match that outward acceleration that you would have from going around the globe to the gravity pull towards the center, and basically end up in a state of free fall.
Exactly.
And it's perpetual.
All right, so I'm going to interject really quick, because generally I won't do this unless a question is pertaining to the subject which you guys are talking about. I do think
Sure.
this does address a portion of what you guys are speaking about. So Daryl M for 5 Aussie says, why can't I see Polaris and why do my stars rotate the opposite way?
I got an answer for both of those. If you can't see Polaris, you're somewhere in the south.
Correct.
Because that if you're actually, I have a video I'll put up, or it's already up, I think. Or no, I got a different one. But if you're up at the if you're at the equator and you look to the north, you're gonna see Polaris pretty much right on the horizon. And I do have a video here of that. I'll find it. But and then if you look to the south, you're going to see like the Southern Cross or the center of rotation in the south. You're going to see that on the horizon. So I'm in Minnesota, and I'm at 45 degrees latitude. So from the ground or from the horizon up to Polaris, it's 45 degrees where I live. And as I drive south, like if I go to Florida or something, as I drive south, Polaris gets lower and lower in the sky, like a degree every 70 miles or 69 miles or something. And that is simply because we're gaining, like, I don't think that Polaris is such a vast, far distance away, maybe, because as we're driving away from it, we can see it going farther away from us, going down because of what is that perspective or whatever. Something in the sky going away from you is always going to appear to go down towards the horizon till it hits the horizon.
So can I just that's one question I always have that I still, and I'm not, this isn't aimed at you, I mean just in general, haven't gotten an answer for. And the way a lot of people seem to wriggle out of it is they say they don't subscribe to a set map or whatever, and that's fine. But there's a few ways that we can break it down, right? So I'm down here in Western Australia. We can call it the Southern Hemisphere. We can call it the outside of the plane, whatever. Makes no difference. And my friend is in let's just call it the South for argument's sake, right? So I'm out here in the South. And then my friend is in South America, right down the bottom in Argentina. So as we look at the map, be it a flat Earth map or not, if you measure it out, it would still work the same way. If you were to look at the map, we have, let's say, the North Pole is roughly in the middle.
Sure. I mean, the one that is commonly looked at or whatever, I don't think it's accurate, especially in the South. But
it's probably not accurate. In fact, it definitely isn't accurate. But it gives a fair representation of roughly where things should be. So, if we were to look at it and have North America on the left-hand side, South America would be to the south of North America, if you were to draw a line straight down, which would bring it out to the side. And then Australia would be south of, Asia and across from Europe. So it would be all the way out to the right-hand side.
Yep.
So we are at, myself in South America, no matter what map we go with or what way we look at it, we're at the exact opposite end of these maps, right?
Yeah, and that's the glaring problem with the flat Earth map.
Exactly, because I can see the Southern Cross, and my friend on the extreme other side of the flat and level plane can see the Southern Cross.
And
you in the middle
south.
See the North Star. We're both looking south, so we're looking in opposite directions. And you in the middle are able to see the North Star, which is half of the distance away, but I can't see it. Yep.
But here's the other thing.
We're able to see twice as far away, but at the same time, we're not able to see half as far away. Which don't
and that's I agree with you on that. That doesn't make sense on a map that's like a circle map with a South Pole ring around the outside or whatever, like the flat Earth map kind of is. I mean, that's like the only map that I'm really aware of.
Yeah, sure.
In general, but yeah, that does pose a difficult problem because, like you're saying, you're going to look south from where you're at, and then someone over on a far distant part of the world is going to be looking south, and they're going to be
looking in opposite directions.
It seems like they're going to look in opposite directions. Now,
exactly.
Here's the one thing that comes into that, and I'm not saying that it means anything, but the one thing that comes into that is you're going to be looking at it south. You're going to see the Southern Cross at an entirely different time.
Correct.
That it's going to be dark where you are when they can see the Southern Cross. Now, that the weird part about that is I'm not trying to say that the South Pole is moving around the Earth each day. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? I'm not saying that, but it does get complicated because we can only see the stars at night. So, um, like,
So
you know what I mean?
there are no, I'm not big into astrophotography and all that stuff, but there are what are they called, telescopes that can see during the day. I mean, obviously not as well as they can see during the night, but there are some spectroscopes and things that
Like
can track the Southern Cross. Exactly, radio
Yeah,
telescopes, that kind of thing. That will be able to map it. So the only way that would work for me, unless we were moving around, right? But
yeah, and
if
yeah. Sorry.
if that was to work, we would, myself and my friend in South America would have to be, essentially South America and Australia would have to be very close to each other. But then we have the issue of, during the sunny day here, it's nighttime there. And so it doesn't match up at all.
Yep.
But it does work on a globe in every capacity. And that's where, these glaring issues that cannot be resolved other than magic, realistically, other than I've heard one person say there's multiple Southern Crosses that are all the exact same, but they're reflections of each other off the dome and things like this. I've heard some interesting answers to it, but none of them seem to actually get to the point that it's not possible.
Yours is different than mine. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, I can like I'm not gonna just pretend like I have some kind of proof of something that I don't. So, as far as that goes, I don't know how to explain that, and that would obviously be that that map layout. There's something that we're not grasping about that map if that map is right. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Oh, and
Sure.
then
Like
here's the
that
other.
map has a lot of issues. I agree. And I know a lot of flat earthers don't accept that map because you might be able to make one or two things work on that map, but then those things that you've, made to work will cause other issues that then can't be explained
Yes.
and would require a different map. And if you add all
Yeah.
those maps up, generally speaking, you end up with a globe for it to actually work. But
There
All
you
right,
go.
we have
One
another
oh
we have another chat coming in. We have a question for the
sure.
panel. Let's see. I think this is for you, FTEP. Says, do you agree that the math languages of geometry and trigonometry are valid?
if am I answering right now?
Well,
I
it's
would
a
say
two-part
yes.
question. Okay, so if yes, then
Yeah.
explain the constant circular shadows of eclipses regardless of the angle of observation. If flat, this wouldn't occur.
Let me try to understand what he's saying. If yes,
That's
explain the
from JL
constant
Warren. That's 1999 American, by the way. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
constant circular shadows. I'm trying to picture what that question is asking.
All right,
Because
so
of an eclipse, the constant circular shadows.
right.
What
So
kind
what
of shadows do you think he's talking about? I'm like the little. I guess I don't understand the question. Maybe I'm dense, but I agree that geometry and trigonometry are valid, and the shadows of eclipses. What shadows? Maybe he can add a little info. One thing I didn't answer about the last question was the rotation opposite directions in the south and the north.
Yeah.
That's actually a misconception because the stars rise in the east and set in the west everywhere on Earth, south and north. So what's happening is when you're like on my video right there that I'm playing, if you could see a little bit lower, you'd be able to see Polaris in the center there. That's pointed north, so the stars are moving counter or anti-clockwise. Now, the reason why they appear to be moving the opposite way in the south is because we have to turn around to look south. We have to turn around 180 degrees. So if we actually look at the image that I have up there, they're going down on the left side. Do you know what I'm saying? They're going down. Now, let's just turn to the left. That would be turning west. And so they're going to be setting on the west. And even as we turn left one more time, 90 degrees to look south, we're just going to see them also setting in the west, but it'll be going clockwise from our viewpoint at that time. Do you get what I'm saying? So all the stars are actually moving the same direction around Polaris or around the southern, around those two centers of rotation. They're all moving the same direction. It just appears that to be opposite when you're standing, like if you were at the equator, because you have to turn that 180 degrees. So when you turn that 180 degrees, you're looking the opposite way. And so now they're going to appear to be going a different direction, but they're still setting in the west. Am I losing
Well,
you? Irish
Irish-
Demon looks at.
Kind of lost me there. I gotta say,
Well, Irish.
Let me try to reword it maybe. But go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say what Irish ponders that. Road No Last Name for 5 says, what things work on a flat Earth but don't work on a globe Earth?
That's a good question. Observations? I don't know. Some observations, I guess. Like observing the sky turning and not the Earth turning. But okay, here we go.
so that's a good point to go on there. If I can just real quick, that's a good point to go on there about the sky rotating with the Earth isn't. So I've heard this a lot from other flat earthers as well, and the thing that I got to ask there is, why is it okay for the sky to be moving? That's completely plausible, no problem. Everything's moving in the sky, but the Earth isn't. Why is the Earth not included in that? Why is it that the sky can move and the Earth can't? And likewise, the sun. People say, "Oh, we don't see the sun set because the Earth is rotating. The sun is going around the plane or whatever." What would be driving that? It's completely feasible for flat earthers for the sun to be arbitrarily moving through the sky, but not the other way around. And it seems like they're both equally, plausible or whatever.
Okay, I think I see what you're saying. I would say that that's probably because of observation, because we do, like, I can put my camera outside and I can take a image of star trails without moving my camera at all, and the stars are moving in the viewfinder in the video, that like the one that's on your screen. I didn't move the.
If you were to go into a dark room, sorry, my bad, sorry.
Well, I'm just saying, if you were to set if you were to take your camera that was following the sky movement, then you'd need a motor on your telescope in order to follow the sky. So the telescope would have to move in order to make it an image that is a still image of the sky. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
but
the sky's literally moving.
I think that works both ways, though, right? Like, for example, if I'm in a car driving along, looking out the window, and let's say I don't know I'm in a car and I see trees shooting past me, it looks like the trees are moving, when in actual fact it's me who's moving. So either way, that would let's take it this way, right? If you were to put your camera on the floor in a dark room and have little lights above your head in random places, and then you were to spin the camera at 360 degrees, you would get the same effect that you get right there, right? Oh,
yeah, for sure. You're just saying that by turning the camera, you'd get that. Yeah,
absolutely.
And so I think I don't think that that's necessarily something that wouldn't work on either a flat Earth or a globe Earth. You know what I mean? I think it kind of makes sense on both.
Yeah,
but that's
the
whole point that I would make you.
But that's why I'm saying it wouldn't be proof.
Why can't the Earth?
Sorry, I think there's just a bit of a delay. Sorry, that's my bad.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, no, I just noticed the delay too. Sorry about that. You were saying, why can't it be the Earth that's moving? And it could, but the point I make is that we observe the Earth not moving. And observations are important in science, or if we want to learn about, anything. So it looks like a clay.
Okay, and so I get where you're coming from there, but I guess it goes back to, and I know people don't like this kind of analogy, but if you're on a train, the train is moving at a set speed, without looking out the window, you don't know whether or not the train is moving, right? You just feel like you're sitting on the seat. Or if you're in an aircraft traveling 600 miles an hour, you feel like you're sitting, as long as the velocity of that aircraft doesn't change, you feel like you're just sitting in a seat at home. You can throw a ball up in the air, it won't go anywhere. So your frame of reference, we're not finely tuned scientific instruments. So our observations, while they're important, are not the be all and end all of everything. We can't see bacteria, but we know they're there. We can't see radio waves necessarily, but we know they're there because we use them all the time. So it's like our observations aren't great. The analogy I used the last time was if I was floating, 100 meters up or 1,000 meters up right now, and I look down at the ground, I wouldn't be able to see a whole lot. But the hawk that's flying next to me can see a mouse moving, 1,000 meters below and swoop down and get it. So our instruments that we use aren't very finely tuned at the best of times. So I don't think it can be the basis for everything that we do.
And I can agree to a certain point on that.
Gotcha. Here's a clarification for that last question from JL Warren. It says the shadows of the eclipses, Earth on Moon, etc., are circular regardless of the angle of observation. If the Earth were flat, this would not be the case. At some angles, the shadow would be a line.
The shadow would be a line. I'm trying to picture that. Sorry, JL, I'm a little slow sometimes.
I believe the question he's asking is why is it that no matter where we observe the shadow of the eclipse, it's always circular and it's always the same circle. It's not
what about during
obtuse or good.
What about during one of those selenium eclipses where the Earth is, well, that's where we're looking from, but the moon is above the horizon and the sun is above the horizon? That's an interesting one, because how is it making a shadow on the moon if he's talking about a lunar eclipse? How does that happen if the sun is visible and the moon is visible at the same time? How is the Earth making the shadow? That's a question that I would ask. I think but
what's that eclipse called? I haven't come across that term.
It's called, I'll spell it for you if I can. It's SENELELION. That's my best guess, and that might be right, but
oh yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
I think they call it like a geometrically impossible cosmic event or whatever.
Sure.
But it happens every once in a while.
But addressing the question, why? So take that. I forget. I know what you're talking about. I just forget the term off the top of my head.
Taking
that aside, why is it that we see circular shadow? Then it's the same circular shadow, regardless of the position we are observing it from. You would think that if the Earth were flat, we would see a different shadow depending on where we are.
Okay, I think I know what you're saying. I think that the way that I see the moon is almost like if we put a plate on the ceiling and the face of that plate, or if that's the best way to example it, I think it's like more like a disc that we're seeing the bottom side of it. And so I think probably everybody on the Earth would see the same thing no matter what's happening on it. And like if you're in the south and the north, you're going to see it upside down from each other, because again, you have to turn around from looking north to south depending on where you live. Like in Australia right now, if we were to take a picture of the moon, if Irish Demon was to take a picture of the moon and I was to take a picture of the moon, we'd see the same features and everything, but his would be upside down in comparison to mine.
Correct.
So I think that the shadow being round or whatever, I think I can't explain that. I mean, just guess that, but I don't see why it wouldn't be that way on a flat Earth. So maybe I didn't understand the question quite right. But
so I guess the way it wouldn't be that way on the flat Earth is because the sun and moon would be up all the time, as opposed to being on opposite sides of the Earth or whatever. And I've just looked into the selenium eclipse just to see what it's about. And so it's only observable at very certain times, and it actually takes place during a total lunar eclipse, but it's a result of the observer's position as opposed to the actual phenomena itself. So it's a result of atmospheric refraction causing the sun to appear higher in the sky. So in actual fact, it is blocked by the Earth. It just appears higher in the sky because of refraction, which makes sense. But because it only happens for a short period of time. But if you go 7 miles to the east, But if you go 7 miles to the east, you'll see the total eclipse without seeing the sun because it'll be behind the Earth's curve.
Well, yeah, but it's only for a brief moment that you can actually see that, because I actually witnessed it once myself. I think it was in 2018, maybe in December, or January 31st or something. And I think I actually got video of it on my channel. It's hard to see the moon because the moon was so almost faded out and low on the horizon. I was in the middle of a lake. And it was kind of weird, but at the same time, I can see how they can explain that with some refraction. But that probably isn't even worth like bringing up because it's another thing where it's like close to being, you could see it from both angles, I guess, or both sides.
Yeah, I get you there. It's an interesting one, and it's pretty cool, but I think it's pretty easily explained. I'm just looking at a few different diagrams of how it works, and it does seem to make sense now that I'm looking at it.
While you're doing that, Daryl M for 5 Aussie says, "I can watch Jupiter rotating. Why is the Earth different?"
Let's see. If you have a what are those dancing disco ball? If you have a disco ball hanging in the middle of the ceiling and it's turning, does that mean the floor is turning? Like the lights up in the sky are not the Earth, right? So I wouldn't expect. I think that would be Jupiter turning too.
I think that would be an adequate answer if the lights on the ground rotated as well as moved. But I think his question is he can watch the spin. And I may be speaking for Daryl M here, but I think that what he is saying is that he can see the rotation of Jupiter as well as the star trail.
Oh yeah, and that's Jupiter's just a planet, right? And it moves in a retrograde motion sometimes, which it appears to be weird, I guess. Like with the rest of the sky, it'll appear to move a little backwards in its orbit, as some of the other planets do it too. But as far as it turning or whatever, I think it seems like maybe he's trying to kind of insinuate that if Jupiter can be a round planet or turning or whatever, that the Earth could be, or something. Maybe I'm taking that wrong, but I don't think Jupiter has anything to do with the Earth being a certain shape. If I answered that right.
All right, Irish. I think we can move on to your strongest point.
Yeah, sure thing. So for me, it all comes down to the sheer amount of evidence that are provided by people in the know, obviously, and what it would mean to suggest that they are either completely wrong or lying. And so when we look at it as a whole, just overall, we look at NASA, the ESA, all scientists that are involved in planetary study, all the astronauts, all of the people who worked on all of those craft, all of the people who deal with satellites, and you're now talking millions of people the world over.
Yeah.
For the past, let's even just call it since the start of human space flight, the past 60, 70 years, millions of people would either have to all be wrong or all be lying, or a mixture of the two. So I've heard a lot of people refer to that as compartmentalization, and just because you learn something in university and you regurgitate it doesn't mean it's true. But that's a misunderstanding of how university works and how people learn. So it's just the vast amount of people who would need to be in on this conspiracy. And then the second part to that same point is when you look at things like the Himawari 8 satellite, which is in geostationary orbit above the Asia-Pacific region. I watch it all the time, and I can see the sun go down, and the cloud shapes comport to what I see out my window. I tracked the wildfires here in Western Australia when I was working out on the road during those fires. There's a whole load of things that you can look at there that make sense. When you look at those pictures from the Himawari 8, I don't know, Johnny, if you can pull up a live feed of the Himawari 8 right now on their website, you can see the Earth. You can see that it's a globe. You can see where the shadows are. And it makes sense that it's a globe. So it would need to then follow that the creators of that, all of the people who programmed it, the people who put it up there, the people who man it, the people who share the pictures live, would all either need to be completely wrong, and what they're seeing is actually not a globe at all, and it's just their brains are telling them it is, or they would all have to be lying and in on this huge conspiracy. So that's my main point, that the overwhelming amount of individuals and amount of falsified documentation and falsified evidence and science that would need to be achieved is way above and beyond anything that a human being would be capable of, or especially a group of humans. Because the more people that know, the more chances of it getting out. We have no evidence of anybody on their deathbed turning around and saying, guys, it's actually flat. We just don't see that. It has never happened. You might get a few people that claim it, but for the majority of these scenarios, it doesn't happen. So the amount of people that would need to be lying or in on it is staggering. And for that reason, science aside, you would have to show that there's a reason why they would do that, and a reason how, or an ability for millions of people to be involved in a grand conspiracy of that scale. And
that's a good. I agree with you. So it might be a little bit different than some other flat earthers. I don't actually think that NASA is lying about anything. I'm sure there's been people at NASA that have lied before, but I'm saying is they're not an organization to deceive, like the flat earthers often push this idea that NASA's Freemasons and they're Jesuits and all the different kinds of accusations that get made.
Stuff, yeah.
Baseless accusations, because I think I see a harness there or a wire or something. There's these little indications or some glitching happens. And I used to think a little bit like that. I used to think that there's maybe some sinister deception happening with NASA, but and I'm just being general with NASA. I'm talking about all the space organizations, whatever. SpaceX has really opened up that to the public. SpaceX has, because NASA, their government, they're not going to release every bit of information they have, but SpaceX seems to be really trying to excite the public about going and doing these things. And so they've really I don't know if you guys follow the community, like the Boca Chica stuff that's happening with Starship. And they're really wide open. I mean, they're not going to give away their rocket designs and things or whatever, but they are pretty wide open to the public about it. Now, that's where I differ from other flat earthers. I don't think that they're lying about anything. I don't think that anybody's lying about the shape of the Earth. And when it comes to photos, or the Himawari, like you were saying, appears to be a globe. When you go on the ISS, that appears from there, appears to be a globe. And the reason why I believe that is actually Daryl M is actually asking a question on the screen there. The next question that actually kind of gets into the reason why I believe that that it looks that way, but that it's not that way. Like it looks.
All right.
Like
well,
I'm
glad you segued that, because it was so important. It looks like you asked it twice. Daryl M for 5 Aussie. Is your belief in the flat Earth based on religious text?
The religious texts definitely complement my belief or whatever. That's a major part of my belief. And when it comes to space, the religious texts have actually changed my understanding of the entire sky and what's happening there, and into understanding it to be a place of darkness that men on the earth, I'm talking like all mankind, has been interested in going to these planets and going up to that place. And I've recently found that the desire to do that is something that the prophets wrote about. They talked about worshiping the stars and the host of heaven. And and then they even go into great detail, like Enoch uh, was talking about those seven stars that they do something different than all the other stars. All the other stars go around the North Pole or the South Pole, whatever way you want to look at it. And then there's these seven that they do retrograde motion, and they do their own. They're doing something different than all the other stars. Well, Enoch went to this place, waste and horrible place where there was no water and no birds or whatever. And he said it was at the end of heaven and earth, and he saw seven stars there that had transgressed, because God, when he created them, he gave them a specific orbit, and that's what they were supposed to do. And seven out of all the stars, seven of them didn't obey. And Enoch was told that those seven stars would be there to defile mankind into worshiping them instead of God. And I'm like thinking, like, so there is definitely it's a belief in the Bible, of the prophets of God that wrote the Bible. They seem to touch on this subject a lot. Not only the flat Earth, but it has really interested me lately about finding out that place above us that is a place of darkness may be more of a spiritual place than we're thinking of it as being physical with and gravity and all of that. It might be more of a spiritual, another type of nature there. So that basically I'm saying physics would be different there. And it actually appears to be, I understand gravity and that the physics with all that seems to work. But if we really look at it, there's no air there. It's like a vacuum. It's a totally different nature, totally different reality than we're used to here on the Earth. So I don't want to drag on too long.
So I guess looking at the Bible as a scientific text in that way, you're going to run into issues, right? So like, I'll give you an example. I've pulled up an example that I'd like to use. So this is from Matthew 13:31 says, another parable put he, Jesus, forth unto them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is like to a grain of mustard seed, which a man took and sowed in his field. Which indeed is the least of all seeds, which indeed is the least and smallest of all seeds, but when it is grown, it is the greatest among herbs and becometh a tree, so that the birds in the air come to lodge in the branches. So in that piece of the Bible, he's saying that Jesus said that the mustard seed is the smallest of all seeds, right? Seems like a pretty innocuous statement, but it shows that the Bible can be wrong about something. We can all agree a mustard seed is tiny, but it's certainly not nearly the smallest of seeds. For example, the seed of an orchid is really tiny, even comparable to a mustard seed. So another one is this other one that I pulled up comes from, I think it's, I don't know how to pronounce that, but he says anyway, he gave them the ability to think, made a tongue, eyes, and ears, and gave them a heart to be able to think. So again, that's for obvious reasons. That's false. We don't think with our heart. If you'll excuse the, regular parlance of somebody thinking with their heart or other body parts. But of course, we all know that you think with your brain or whatever. So that's another scientific statement that is wrong in the Bible. And so I think it's probably fair to say that the Bible in and of itself is not a scientific text. And so taking science from the Bible and then ignoring everything, ignoring the fact that all images of the earth show that it's a globe, ignoring the fact that all observable science shows that it is a globe, just because a book said at one time that it might be, because they refer to the four corners of the earth, for example, which, I say things that aren't necessarily scientifically true, or if I said to the missus, the dogs are barking, I'm on my last nerve, I'm not actually on my last nerve. You know what I mean? It's so sometimes words used in a certain way, and so it doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. And so there's a whole load of different things in the Bible that get science completely wrong, like speaking about insects, saying that whales are fish, etc., etc., and on we go. So there are definitely some issues with science in the Bible, and so I think looking at science in the Bible as being the correct science that we should, and it's not just science. I mean, there's other things, referring to slaves, referring to, putting kids to, giving kids capital punishment for disobeying their parents, doing the same for homosexual people, etc. They're all issues within the Bible too. So we can't take, or wearing two pieces of clothing woven of different cloth, all these little things in the Bible that make sense. Wearing makeup, having tattoos, all of these kind of things. So it's kind of like, well, where do we draw the line on what's truth and what's parable or whatever? So
here's a direct question that asks about this specific subject here from J.L. Warren. Says, at Eft, virtually every denomination disagrees with you. About what methodology did you determine the truth of your interpretation of the Biblic, I think he means Bible, and the falsity of the others?
Well, I don't
just
think
need to
that.
Step out for one quick sec. Sorry, I'm just going to switch off my cam, but I can still hear you guys.
Okay.
I don't think that like my interpretation of the Bible is right and everyone else's is wrong. That's not what I think. I do think that there's more than one way to look at certain things, and I'm not saying that to be wishy-washy or whatever. Let me give an example. The flat Earth. Okay, I don't think that anywhere in the Bible it actually says that the Earth is flat. But I do think that there is actually prophecy, like foretold things of certain times, and like the day of the Lord, and prophecies of things that would happen in the future. Like the whole book of Revelation is, it's a testimony of Jesus from heaven that was sent to John. And John wrote the book, and he was told to write down what he saw, and that the things that he saw in that vision were things that would be coming to pass in the future. And a lot of those things seem to be specifically about this debate, this debate subject that we're talking about, the globe versus the flat Earth. I can give you an example in Luke chapter 3. It says I think it's verses 5 and 6. Every valley shall be filled, and every mountain and hill shall be made low, and the crooked will be made straight, and rough places smooth. I think I'm just going off the top of my head here, so don't quote me. But and then it says all flesh shall see the salvation of God. That gives me the idea that, because if we fill the valleys and we make the mountains and hills low, we know what valleys and mountains and hills are. So if we actually did that, we'd end up with a flat ground. So I don't know if I don't know if that's like saying that it would be something. He says it's all flesh would see the salvation of God. So it kind of seems like that has something to do with the salvation of God, but I don't know. It's actually, that's a quote from Isaiah, where he basically says the same thing, but then Isaiah said that it was the glory of God being revealed, and all flesh would see it together. So I think that kind of what Irish Demon was saying about this conspiracy really seems unrealistic to even talk about. A huge conspiracy like that, where people are lying to other people, and they're able to keep this huge secret, and nobody fails, and lets it slip or whatever. I don't think it's realistic. I agree with him on that. And the reason why I see it a little differently is I think that there is, up in that world of our, that we call there, I believe that there is entities up there, spirits or angels or whatever we want to call them, that do have an effect on the way that the way that we see things on the earth, as far as, and I think part of that has to do with things like ignoring our observation, from the Earth because we all live on the Earth and we kind of picture ourselves up in space or something. There's Jupiter. But yeah, I think I'm kind of dragging on here. Sorry.
Maybe a little. Irish, you're back. So we do have a unrelated questions. Is can we get an effed up world and jail warrant debate on God and the Bible?
I would love it. That'd be great.
All right. So General Ishii says, how did you choose your God from the 3,800 odd known? You were taught about one and believe in one only. I think what we'll table that question because I think it's an important question. But I think we should table that before the Jail Warren effed up world.
That sounds good.
I think we'll table that one. Generally, that is a good question. I think how about we are teaching you globe? I'm not sure.
I think I understand in full the globe, but I just
okay. Well,
don't think
here's a question here's a question that I'm kind of getting from the pulse of the chat. Earlier, you mentioned that NASA isn't lying about anything. How does that resolve with a flat Earth?
Well, I think the concept of flat Earth is.
We're not hearing you, Demon.
I think it's something. Oh, I
Sorry,
think you're
guys.
muted.
Sorry, I was going to get to that in the closing, but that's fine. Let's do it now.
Oh, okay. My bad if I jumped the gun on that one.
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
Should I go?
Yeah, go ahead.
For it. Yep.
Okay. All I want to say basically was that I think that this the scope of like let's just compare me the other way that flat earthers think, and they think that people are lying, NASA's lying, and there's some agency that covers everything up and they don't go to space. Versus what I think is that all the things they do, they're actually just doing. If you look at the scope of the deception, what would I be saying? I'd be saying that our deception, the deception I'm seeing isn't coming from men. It's coming from planet and the things up in the sky that make us long to go there. I think that's actually of the devil, because that in the Bible, in Isaiah 14, it says, it's Lucifer says in his heart what he wants to do. He said, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. And then he said he would ascend above the heights of the clouds and be like the Most High. And then after that it says he'll be brought down to the pit. And so I'm actually thinking that the pit is space. And that us thinking that we're ascending into heaven, like NASA, they want to explore the universe and know, knowledge about everything, which I don't necessarily think is necessarily wrong to want knowledge. But when it seems like NASA has to discount God in order to do their science a little bit. They don't acknowledge. Well, because everything's just physical and material to them, it seems. They don't ever mention I can't say that. They do mention creation. I mean, they don't mention it maybe the way the Bible does, but when it comes down to it, I don't think anybody has an answer for why all this matters here, how that came to be. You know what I mean? Sure. I didn't really explain how that all comes to be. It's more of an idea. Well, it has to be, So I think I can't say it too wrong, but I don't think NASA's doing the lying. I think NASA's being deceived into going into that place. And
sure, let's say that's right. Sorry. Okay, let's say they are being deceived by whoever. It doesn't matter who. Either way, they're still providing us, images, videos, like thousands of hours of footage proving that the Earth is a globe. So if they're not lying about that, would it not then follow that the Earth is in fact a globe?
Or it appears like a globe. And I know what you're saying, but the spirits or whatever that are in that place of darkness, their main the main goal that they have is to deceive mankind into worshiping them instead of worshiping or God.
How do you know that?
Well, that's just what the prophets seem to point out. Even like Paul, he said, we're not struggling against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities and the rulers of the darkness of this world, spiritual wickedness in high places. And in the Greek, that literally says cosmic powers of evil in the heavenly realm.
I'm glad you mentioned Greek. So the Greek god Apollo rode, he was the son of Zeus. He rode a chariot of fire across the sky pulled by fiery horses, which brought light to the earth. Yep. Was that religious text wrong and your one's right?
I think that Apollo is definitely a real, I guess, god or whatever you would call it. Not like the difference in that text would be that Apollo's like a mighty man or whatever they call him. What do they call him? Like mythological, like Greek mythology, right? That I think there's some truth to some of that, but at the same time, the God that I'm interested in is the one that made everything.
So the All-Father, like Odin, or
the God of the Bible, I believe. Jesus actually in the Bible anyway. Jesus actually created the whole world and everything. Even though he was like born into the world 2,000 years ago, but at the very beginning was the Word. He's like the Word of God. If you think about, like, if God's going to say something, it's Jesus that says it. He's the Word of God. But
so all of the people that came before Jesus, or even before the concept of the Judeo-Christian God, they were all wrong and went to hell, probably. Like, for example, the Greeks had, Apollo and Zeus. The Romans had essentially a copy of those gods. The Etruscans had their own gods. The Celts had their own gods. The Vikings had their own gods. Usually they had like a main god, like Zeus or Odin or all these different gods who represented some kind of an all-father. So would you be saying that maybe they're all one and the same person, like the Judeo-Christian gods are all the same god, apparently?
Well, I think that they would be that, like, not that they weren't real as far as I think that they were actually part of probably part of like this offspring that is mentioned in a lot of books, but the giants. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Nephilim or whatever.
Yep.
The Nephilim were offspring of angelic beings, which could be these gods that you're talking about. Could be Apollo and Zeus and all these other I don't know what they're called. I guess Greek mythology is what
deities,
usually deities or demigods.
Deities, yeah, demigods, yeah. And I think that those actually could be the angels that came down from heaven and left their estate there and came down here to procreate. They lusted after women and they made offspring and with human women, and the offspring were giants, and they were quite ruthless.
Well, let's steer this back into the realm of the shape of the earth. We can definitely get into.
So can I just press on one point, because I know we could go on forever about that kind of stuff because it is fascinating stuff. But let's just look at briefly the concept that you had about when we go into the place of darkness, or what I would call outer space, and we look back at the Earth and we see a globe. So are you positing that the people who are observing that are being fooled by some naughty ghosts, or whatever you want to call them, spirits or bad spirits or whatever?
Yeah, I think you're getting the idea that I'm giving. I could read something here that probably gives it a better explanation if I just read some of what Paul the Apostle wrote, just like two or three verses. This is in the Vision of St. Paul. It's a book that I believe he wrote about his ascension into the third heaven or whatever, which is mentioned in the Bible. But it's an angel took him up there, and he says, and he led me into heaven, and I looked back upon the firmament, and I saw in the same place power, and there was there oblivion, which deceives and draws down to itself the hearts of men, and the spirit of detraction, and the spirit of fornication, and the spirit of madness, and the spirit of insolence. And there were the princes of vices. These I saw under the firmament of heaven, and again I looked back, and I saw angels without mercy, having no pity. So it goes on. He saw under the firmament, or right at the bottom of heaven, or whatever. He saw a lot of evil there that was deceiving. So, and I think that sort of sums up. Actually, on the screen this is a NASA footage from 1996. There's some weird stuff on that mission. It was a STS-75. Very strange swimming.
What's strange about it?
Those pulsating things with the little, like a slit in them, and they kind of. I'm gonna see if I actually have the actual NASA video. I think I've got it right here. Yeah.
So STS-75. I'm sorry. Harold for $5 says, EFT, why you are a smart dude. Why must you make excuses for the observable world using religion? Why aren't they compatible in your mind?
Well, the observable world is stationary, isn't it? There's and I know that there's some arguments like a ring laser gyroscope or something, but I think that those are being those kind of measurements are something else happening, or like a pendulum at different latitudes working a certain. I think there's something else, but we do observe a stationary Earth, every one of us.
JL Warren for $4.99 says, I ask again, by what methodology did you determine that your interpretation was true and others are false? If it's because you feel it, just say that. It's
not because I feel it. It's because common sense. It has to be like if there's words on a page, and the only reason why we have words and why you can understand why I'm saying right now is because we put words together into sentences, and they're very specific words. And when they say very specific things, I think that's just what it's called comprehension. If there's an example that JL maybe would come up with, I mean, like I know that a lot of people disagree with what I think I'm reading about, but at the same time, if we could be specific, then I might have a better. And maybe we should have a debate, JL. I would enjoy that. Yeah. That'd be great.
I think we can save that one. So JL Warren for another $4.99 says, there are people who claimed that very video shows alien ships. Why are those people wrong? Did we lose you? We might have lost him.
Looks like his screen's gone frozen.
Yeah. Might have lost him for a minute. We'll give him a second or two to come back in.
Yeah.
JL Warren for another $4.99 says, and why doesn't every single denomination think like you? Those are good questions. And for certain, I think setting up that that debate on theism, JL, yeah, he dropped. I think the who knows what happened there. We'll see if he comes back. We'll give it a few minutes.
Sure.
So I was giving it time, I was about to ask you guys to actually get into your closing statements. But we'll give him a few minutes to jump back in.
Absolutely.
Why does the Pope believe in the globe? Because the Pope understands.
Is a Jesuit, most likely. I think he is a Jesuit, yeah.
He probably is, but let's see here.
They usually are, as far as I know. Yep, he became a Jesuit in 1960. So he's in on it,
the whole thing.
Yeah. They're all in on it. But of course, then again, most Christians, especially the more extreme, Christian apologists and stuff, tend to not take much of what the Pope or the Catholic Church says for anything, really. So.
Yeah, they have issue with it. Adam, to answer your question, he got caught up in work and was unable to step away for a minute. So there's that.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah. All right, we'll give it just a minute or two more, and then what denomination is he and which Bible does he follow? I don't know, and I don't know.
Well, he believes in the Book of Enoch, so I'm not sure that,
All right. Well, if you were to give your closing arguments or your closing statements, what would they be?
I mean, I guess it would fall to some very simple observations that I made just from having this conversation, and I don't want to necessarily talk without Eftupworld being here.
He tells me that his computer crashed.
Okay, so what you want to do? Will I continue or?
Let me see. Let me ask him really quick.
Sure. I'm happy to do either way. I've got another 15 minutes before I got a bunk, but other than that, I'm good.
For certain.
Maybe 20. Because then my fee doubles after that, right?
Oh, yeah. I sent you the Krispy Kreme truck. What do you want? What more do you want from me?
It was empty. Well, it is now.
You didn't say. Oh, okay.
But yeah, as for the Book of Enoch, that's one kind of thing that you can say, okay, well, there's a lot of crazy stuff in the Book of Enoch.
It's an interesting book. I couldn't take it serious.
Sorry about my messy background, by the way. I'm still packing, so everything's kind of all over the shop.
Oh, it's all right. It doesn't look terrible.
So I've got
not as bad as my messy background with a turtle.
So I guess we'd give it a few more minutes here and see if he can come back in.
He was able to get back in, yeah. So how do you feel about how this went?
I mean, it went about as I expected. No real, and this isn't to be disrespectful or anything, but no actual evidence for a flat Earth other than, this old book said it or didn't actually say it, but may have meant it based on my interpretation. Mm-hmm. Also, the fact that he accepted that, NASA isn't lying about anything, but that they're being deceived by, space ghosts. To me, it just seems like an ad hoc explanation. I'm sure he would agree that it probably is ad hoc, but it's too far out there to just, be a reasonable explanation. There's a whole lot of, you could just come up with random explanations for essentially everything. And that seems to be the case here. It's just kind of a random explanation. It doesn't really get to the bottom of anything. If you accept that NASA isn't lying about the shape of the Earth, and if you accept that, NASA really are doing all of these things and not themselves trying to be deceptive, then it would follow that the Earth is a globe, right? But then you have the excuse of, oh, well, they're being deceived by magic ghosts, which is not something that anybody can prove or disprove. So it just goes back to the same thing of, it's the equivalent of, why do you think the Earth is flat? Well, God told me in a dream, so nothing you can say is going to prove me otherwise. There's nothing you can do about that at that point. The argument is essentially, the conversation is essentially over at that point. I think I showed quite clearly, and I didn't even need to go into too much detail. It would take millions and millions and millions of people to be lying over decades upon decades with international wars and high tensions and all that kind of stuff. Something is bound to get out, and nothing ever has. And then there's just a misunderstanding of basic things we see around us, like eclipses and things like that. Which took me 2 minutes to research and made perfect sense after I did. I think what we're seeing here is more a case of somebody who has a very strong religious conviction. Science goes against that conviction, and therefore science is wrong, because the book must be right. The book couldn't be wrong. So that's what I'm getting from all of the answers that I got. And so he seemed to agree with me on the majority of things, and that's good. I'm sure, he can agree with most stuff, but there does seem to be a lot of, invoking magic, really.
Yeah, it's that willful. I don't want to say ignorance because,
but not ignorance in that sense, but willful ignorance, basically. I mean, and it just requires whatever about a God, right? I mean, you could turn around, like what J.L. Warren believes, that like God could have still created all this stuff. But that physics is still a thing, and we can figure those things out. And I mean, who knows? It could be that God created all of this stuff, and that's cool. But does that then suspend the reality of the physics that we see every day?
Yeah, and
it doesn't.
It's like the argument, or the argument that I get into with people who believe in creation versus evolution. That's you can believe. Evolution doesn't negate God.
Exactly.
Just like a round earth wouldn't negate God. They're exclusive of each other.
Exactly. Like the thing from the Bible that a lot of people need to go off is that, we were monkeys, so we weren't even really important in the eyes of God. And they argue that, God, breathed air into somebody's fucking face and made them human. I mean, that could still follow, right? Like, there's nothing to suggest that God looked upon all his creations, saw the great apes, and thought, oh, I like those ones the most. Maybe I'll make them my special, as Donald Trump, my special little boys, and, turned us into humans at that point and gave us a soul. And who knows? Maybe, right?
Well,
I don't think that's the case, but
who's to say that the design of his creation, I mean, look, if you take a potter, or a sculptor, right? He didn't just fucking take the slab of marble, hit it with a hammer once, and there's a fucking, there's a statue of David.
A few swings, right?
Right. It started out as this giant block of marble, then we, crack here, crack there, and piece here, piece there.
I just want everybody to know as well, the statue of David is based on me, except for the PP. He got that wrong. That's just perspective. It's way too small. It's like a cashew nut.
Way too big. That's why.
Well, back in those days, a little PP was seen as a good thing. So, well, so they say. So I've been told. But yeah. So I think it all comes down to just. Actually, there's a good example. I cannot remember the name of the scientist. It was a friend of Richard Dawkins, I believe, who was. He was both an incredibly well-respected scientist and a Jewish scholar. And he said that the two systems didn't comport with each other. So he had to abandon science and go with his religious conviction instead, even though he was an eminent scientist. But I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But I can probably find it. I have all the books, but I could probably find it. Also, Richard Dawkins just released a new book, which I just ordered. So.
All right, we've got him back. Now, we were actually getting into our closing statements.
Sorry about that.
No, it happens. No worries. So we're getting into closing statements here, and with Irish Demon defaulting to you to open, Irish, would you like to
Sure. I'll just yeah. So just my view on all of this is that I presented a case for why it wouldn't be reasonable to suggest that we're being lied to by NASA or that we're being deceived by NASA and other space agencies and basically all the scientists in the world. So, what would naturally follow from that is the fact that the Earth is a globe based on everything that they show us. We can test it ourselves in many ways, and so we can use that. But if we're to default to the authority on the matter based on the fact that they are the ones with the equipment to actually physically go up there and look at it, if they're not lying to us, then it would follow that it is true that the Earth is a globe and comports with what we observe here on Earth. Thank you, Bob, for that. And then on top of that, it follows that you needed to respond by suggesting that maybe there's some kind of a spirit realm above the clouds, and when people go past that realm, that they're being deceived by those spirits into believing it's a globe. I don't see why that would be necessary. Why, of all of the things that they could show you, they would show it as a globe, which also comports with what we see here on the planet itself. It seems like a bit of a kind of an ad hoc response, and there's no way of proving or disproving it. And I guess it comes back to like this, the flying spaghetti monster. I could say that there's a flying spaghetti monster orbiting the Earth, and it's deciding, when everybody gets hungry. You can't necessarily disprove that. It's unlikely, of course, but you can't disprove it. I can't also prove it. So I guess it's just, it seems like you agree with everything until you get to that point where it disagrees with your view of the Bible or your view of religious texts. And then you need to cover that and become an apologist for that by denying the reality that we all see. And so I think that I've proven that the likelihood of this being a massive cover-up is essentially nil, which then follows that the evidence that we're provided in the form of images from space, video from space, and other data is true. And it then follows that we do live on a globe and that the Earth isn't, in fact, flat, because a flat Earth and a globe simply don't comport with each other. So I think I've proven, based on that the Earth is a globe. And I think I'll leave it there. I think that covers everything.
All right. Eftupworld, your closing arguments.
All right. I just have to say that we do observe an Earth that's stationary beneath our feet. And even though we can make up, there's reasons that we can make sense of that we could be moving, and that we just wouldn't feel it, things like that. But we do observe the part that I think is important, anyways. That we do observe an Earth that's not moving. And I understand a lot of people doubt the religious texts and that the beliefs that I have. And that's something that I'm just using my dad for an example. Yesterday, I did point out to him that the solar system is something that we've never seen. We don't witness the Earth. We don't observe the Earth going around the sun. We actually observe the sun going from horizon to horizon every day over our heads. Same with the moon and whatnot. So I think that a lot of the observations we make must be ignored in order to be on this globe. So I think that in that case, I think that our observations are more accurate than the equipment that we pretend make observations for us, and that we can trust our senses to a certain degree, not in a ridiculous way. We don't measure like a tape measure measures with our senses. We use the tape measure. And he brought up bacteria, stuff like that. But as far as if everyone in the world made an observation, and it's a very defined observation, how would science ignore that in trade for something like the solar system, or like the idea that the Earth is rotating, when we all experience an Earth that's not rotating? That's one part, and then water. We all know what water does when you when it's let go in a place that's not at rest. It flows to the lowest point and it is flat at its surface. And we see there's a lot of visual things that we see that could be looked at both ways. I choose to, and actually that is the reason why I think that that this is even a debate, is because I think it is something being revealed to mankind, something that we've never really understood in the way that we can now. So I would just encourage people not to ignore some of these things. And I mean, you don't have to say, well, I guess I'm a flat earther, but at least consider what the flat earthers are pointing out. Sometimes some of them are ridiculous, I know, but I think there is validity to this side of the debate. So that's about all I have to say. Thank you to Irish Demon and Johnny O. I appreciate you guys.
Absolutely. This has been an interesting evening. Sorry we got kind of a little hip start there, but it happens. I appreciate both debaters coming on. And to answer a question in the side chat, Mr. P, I generally don't do flat Earth debates because most flat Earth debates they tend to turn into dumpster fires. I mean, that's one of the reasons. There are other reasons, but under the right circumstances, if Flat Earth Aussie Jesus wanted to have a cordial debate, a moderated debate, yes, I would host one. This is not generally how I run my debate shows. Most people who've seen these before know that I usually have a better structure. It's usually opening statements and a question and answer, and then open discussion, and then we get into it. So that's this one being what it is. Yeah, there you go. Dumpster fire. Boom, right there.
I like that. That's fun.
That's a good one. And again, I'm not interested in the shit flinging and the dumpster fire stuff. It's okay to be passionate and have a spirited debate, but when it becomes just, oh, you're a fucking idiot and fuck you and all that, you know what I mean?
It actually ruins it. It ruins
it does.
It really does. So I appreciate you guys having the respect for each other, where I didn't have to, do a whole lot of moderating, which again, it's awesome.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
For sure.
And yeah, I think usually at the end of most debates, they're not all in agreement, right? Like,
absolutely.
We disagree on certain things. It doesn't mean we shouldn't be courteous to each other.
I agree.
Agreed. That being said, I appreciate everybody turning up. I appreciate the super chats, all the shares and likes and thumbs and all that fun stuff. I appreciate everything you guys have done. Be sure to check out both of the debaters. If you haven't been on to Irish Demons or Eftupworld's channel, go check them out. If you like them, subscribe, give them a thumbs up, watch a couple of videos, do that fun thing. Anyway, I'm Johnny O. I'm getting out of here because it's time for me to, probably finish doing this video for earlier today or later today. God, see, I'm tired. That's what it is. I'm tired. I'm just talking gobbledygook. That's for you. That's for you, JL. Anyway, thank you guys. We'll see you next time.
See you guys.
See you later. Thank you.